Да я давно готов, ну.
Все, я просто отчет пошел, говорю. 40 секунд.
Добрий день, друзі. Вітаю вас на
Good afternoon, dear friends. Welcome at our venue. I'm Olga Atamanova, and I'll briefly tell you about our schedule of today. At 3:30 p.m., we will be online with Vadim Boychenko, mayor of the city of Mariupol. We will discuss with Vadim Boychenko the situation in Mariupol, evacuation of people, evacuation of civilians from Azovstal steel factory and from Mariupol as such, and how assistance is provided to those who have managed to flee from that hell. At 6 p.m. here in our studio, we'll have Olga Stefanishina, Vice Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine, and also we'll have Pramila Patten, Special Representative of UN General Secretary for sexual violence in the wartime, in war conflict time. And we'll discuss support and assistance for those victims of sexual violence during the war. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. He's Vitaliy Stetsyk, commander of the 22nd Separate Brigade for protection of diplomatic and consular facilities of foreign countries in Ukraine. Mr. Stetsyk, you're welcome. We all know that diplomatic entities come back to Ukraine, so how it goes, how they're protected. Good afternoon. I would like to use this opportunity to tell you a couple of words about our brigade, which is involved in protecting diplomatic and consular facilities in the city of Kyiv. Since the very first days of full-scale invasion of Russian troops in Ukraine, the National Guard, as a component of the defense and security forces of Ukraine, has been engaged in resisting and repelling military aggression jointly with armed forces of Ukraine, military police, and other uniformed agencies. At the same time, according to Ukrainian laws, the National Guard has a number of other important duties, and one of such duties or responsibilities is protection of diplomatic representative offices, consular offices, and governmental facilities in the city of Kyiv. And protection of such diplomatic facilities is the responsibility of my brigade, 22nd Separate Brigade for protection of diplomatic and consular facilities. Every day, more and more diplomats arrive to the city of Kyiv, and they restore their operations here. I have to say that during all this time, while those diplomatic missions were forced to be out of Kyiv, all those diplomatic missions were protected, were guarded by our servicemen. And the main task of the martial law was to prevent any sabotage groups or other criminals from entering diplomatic facilities and making any provocations. And I have to say that our servicemen of the National Guard of Ukraine clearly implemented those assignments, and over all this time there has been no one trespassing in any one diplomatic mission or any damage to any property. Currently, the servicemen of our brigade, according to the brigade's responsibilities, are also to guard the premises of diplomatic missions and consulates of foreign countries against any trespassing or damage, against any violation of their operation, their decency, and implementing the mode of access control in diplomatic missions. Currently, our brigade's units are guarding more than 100 diplomatic missions and consular facilities. before that military aggression, each and every mission was guarded on parity terms according to the Article 47 of Vienna Convention of 1961. Based on that convention, the receiving countries should not impose any discrimination between the countries. So according to that, all those missions, irrespective of the situation, the countries whom they represent enjoy the same rights and responsibilities. A violation of this principle would be considered an act of discrimination that would undermine the foundations of mutual understanding and friendly relationships between countries, between nations. Usually, units of our brigade would carry out their mission as follows. There are four main ways. Duty shifts, patrolling, walking or using vehicles, shifts and sentries and mixed mode. But since the beginning of this military aggression, according to our orders, we have reviewed the scheme of protection and defense of those facilities, and the number of servicemen has increased significantly, and we have only had those sentries with significant increase in the amount of our forces and increase in our rapid response teams on armored vehicles. The personnel involved in those activities has firearms, both short range and long range, and also they have got anti-tank tools to defend against any armored vehicles. During the guarding of diplomatic missions, many times our servicemen would help law enforcement agencies and the security service of Ukraine in fighting sabotage groups, and they were directly involved in capturing those groups, as well as capturing those artillery correction officers and destroying enemies' UAVs. But before the military aggression and at the beginning of it, diplomatic missions who cared about the security of their personnel evacuated, some of them evacuated to western Ukraine, to the city of Lviv and Lviv Oblast, while some other diplomatic missions move abroad. And in order to ensure security of the personnel of those diplomatic missions and their families, as well as diplomatic properties, our personnel would accompany their convoys toward the new locations of those diplomatic missions. And I have to say that we accompanied those convoys not only when they were leaving, but also now when they're coming back. We meet all of them. We meet some of them on the border. We meet some others in Lviv, and accompanied by the servicemen of the National Guard, they return to the capital city of Kyiv. Before the return of diplomatic missions, jointly with the monitoring groups from the security sector of those diplomatic missions, our officers from our brigade are working, and their task is to analyze the security situation in Ukraine and here in the city of Kyiv. By now, there have been more than 30 diplomatic missions who have returned to the city of Kyiv. By the way, now I had that number of 31, and now I have just received a message saying that one more diplomatic mission has returned to Kyiv, that the embassy of Lebanon, and now our servicemen transfer that facility to people from the diplomatic mission. I hope that soon the rest of those diplomatic missions will also return to their premises, to their embassies, and that they will renew their operations in the routine, usual mode. The whole civilized world has been helping us in in resisting the enemy, and diplomats play an important role in that. Due to efforts of diplomats, our country has been receiving assistance, weapons, humanitarian aid, and Ukrainian people, Ukrainian citizens who have been forced to leave their homes temporarily are accommodated abroad. All the time we look for new attitudes towards our staffing in order to improve professional skills of our staff and their moral level and skills for our servicemen to develop and improve in line with the situation that we now have during the wartime. On behalf of myself and our brigade servicemen, I would like to reassure all people in the diplomatic missions, foreign diplomatic missions, that our servicemen will provide reliable security and safety, law and order, and security of property and health of life of your personnel, of your diplomatic missions in the city of Kyiv. So I'd like to sincerely welcome you to return to the city of Kyiv and to restore your usual routine operations. Thank you, Vitaliy. Indeed, we are all awaiting the return of all those representative officers and diplomatic missions. We have a question here in the studio. Please speak into the microphone and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. We hear very good news, and all the embassies keeping come back, which means your cities getting well and people safe. That's good news. It's very good news for everybody's here. Obviously, and I got a questions for you. And do you know how many embassy move back right now, and how many you're expecting to move back, and how long does that take? And yeah, that's the first questions. And the second question is, I'm thinking about the Russian embassy is still there, the properties is still okay, or still existed, or other things else. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for your questions. So, regarding your first question, I already quoted the number, more than 30 missions, more than 30 missions have already returned. I already quoted, by the beginning of our briefing we had 31, and right now I received a message, I received information that also the mission of Lebanon has returned. So now we have 32 missions who returned. How many of them will return? Well, as I already mentioned in my speech, many missions have been now working. Many missions from various countries have been working jointly with my brigade's officers, learning situation, studying situation in the city of Kyiv, studying the situation around their missions in their respective parts of Kyiv, and we decide jointly with them how they would like us to continue protecting those facilities. Whether we should strengthen something, maybe some of them have some wishes, and I'd like to reassure you that we respond to all those wishes about protecting those diplomatic missions. We always are ready and willing to meet all their wishes from all those diplomatic wishes. Vitaliy, could you please, could we somehow provide journalists with some tentative, some numbers, how many missions we had before this full-scale invasion? We had 102. Most of them have left. But there were also even some missions who have not left. For example, the Embassy of Poland, their ambassador remained here. Papal nuncios remained here. There were missions who remained here for a long time, and the ambassador of Turkmenistan remained here for almost 1 month. Then he left for something like 1 week, and then he came back. And then there is the second question. Yes, the second question about the property of the Russian embassy. A good question. You have asked a very good question, but I will answer as follows. As I mentioned in my speech, we organize our service based on the parity and the Vienna Convention, and Article 45 of Vienna Convention of 1961 says as follows: the accommodating country, even in the case of armed conflict, shall protect, shall secure the premises of that mission with its property and archives. And we are a law-abiding country. We comply with all international treaties. And even with this aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, now we are protecting also the embassy of the Russian Federation, and there has not been any trespassing. It's in good order. And also there is a second facility, which is the residence of the ambassador, and it's also protected. Thank you, Vitaliy. Are there any more questions? No more questions? Then thank you for finding time and joining us here. Dear friends, I'd like to remind you that at 3:30 we'll have an online